message va s'étendre à d'autres localités urbaines et rurales au courant de l'année prochaine. Mes chers compatriotes, malgré la...
That this year, Paul BIYA will seize the opportunity in direct diplomatic engagement with the state of Cameroon and our international partners and big stakeholders in the United Nations, stemming from the last General Assembly of the United Nations, where Antonio Guterres sat down with Ambela and transmits to him the concern of the international community that calls for President Paul BIYA of the state of Cameroon to go to the negotiation table because he cannot win this war of subjugation and because of the humanitarian crisis, to meet Ambazonia and resolve this conflict through dialogue and through negotiation. We are deeply disappointed that just an excerpt of his speech where he camouflaged the presentation of this negotiation and dialogue as a pathway for justice and peace. He camouflaged it within the context of the Ukrainian war, and in the 6th paragraph of his speech, he mentioned, I'll read the whole paragraph. I am prompted by the dire consequences of the war on the economies of countries, particularly developing countries, and the suffering inflicted on innocent civilian population, to reaffirm the importance of peace and dialogue in conflict resolution. We have been made to understand that the state of Cameroon is citing this part of his speech where he says that he reaffirms the importance of peace and dialogue in conflict resolution, meaning a reference to the international engagement that the state of Cameroon have had with Ambazonia in the corridors of international diplomacy. This speech falls short of our expectation. This speech is a betrayal of the trust and the time that the international community have given BIYA to address this problem in a meaningful way, and it's time for the world to see the reality of what we have been dealing with. Paul BIYA cannot camouflage international effort after having declared war on the people of Ambazonia. During the past month, while we engage with La République du Cameroun to negotiate and create a path for peaceful resolution of this war in an internationally mediated negotiation process, where Cameroon Paul BIYA, through his delegates, have acknowledged what we all know, what the Americans have asked Cameroon, what the British, what the French and the international community, the Germans, have asked Cameroon, to go to the negotiation table and stop and abandon the use of military force to resolve a conflict that could be resolved on the negotiation table. Paul BIYA have failed to seize the opportunity that we have offered him, that the international community have offered him, to have a say in how this conflict ends. The people of Ambazonia and the Ambazonian Governing Council, we did not expect Paul BIYA to come and wave the white flag of surrender. Neither did we expect President Paul BIYA to suddenly declare an end to the occupation. We expect the President of La République du Cameroun to honor his words, to honor the delegate he have authorized, to honor the Prime Minister of his country, which he has authorized to engage in meaningful talks in order to set up a negotiation process that is fair, that is guaranteed by international law, so that justice according to the international law shall prevail, and justice and peace shall return to the people of Cameroon and the people of Ambazonia who are suffering from this crisis. This war is a direct responsibility of Paul BIYA. Paul BIYA, we do not expect him to say that he has come to a military impasse. We do not expect Paul BIYA to admit the reality on the ground, but we expect Paul BIYA, for the sake of the humanitarian crisis that as a direct result of his authorization of the use of force to fight against people like the senior citizens we have shown you, and the millions of Ambazonians who have risen up to demand for the right of self-determination, for separation and for independence. Paul BIYA, who have demonstrated through this current international engagement that he is the sole person in that country responsible for the deployment of troops, responsible for the movement of troops on the ground, on the battlefield, that he, the one who is responsible for the conduct of the Cameroon military, will do the right thing. Paul BIYA have chosen the wrong path, have chosen death that affects his own citizens that have been sent into Ambazonia to fight an unwinnable war. I want to take you, ladies and gentlemen, to the statistics provided by UNOCHA, an organ of the United Nations, for our people and the people of the world to see the gravity of this humanitarian crisis that have come about as a result of Paul BIYA's decision to use war against a peaceful people who are simply asking for their rights that are embedded and recognized internationally in the United Nations Charter. Statistics you can carefully see from the United Nations as of June this past year, over 3 million people, as I told you, are in direct need of humanitarian assistance. 1.6 million were targeted by the United Nations to provide assistance. Less than 1 million of them did receive assistance in our territory. You can look in the entire Cameroon region, including the territory of Ambazonia. Ambazonia alone have internally displaced people to close to 800,000. That is more than triple the amount of people in the northern part of Cameroon that have been displaced as a result of the fight against Boko Haram. You can look at the international response to the humanitarian crisis. The NGOs receive most of the money, the United Nations as well as the International Red Cross. Our forces and our organization on the ground have facilitated access to our people who live in the forest as a result of these crimes of BIYA and the result of the war that Paul BIYA have chosen. You have seen how the figures have gradually increased from 2017, have increased close to 1 million people who are internally displaced. These are according to United Nations statistics, which are usually underreported. And further, you see how the situation have degenerated in our territory as compared to other parts in Africa. This is the most neglected crisis in the world. The international community have reacted. Its response has been through the UNDP, the British government, the Japanese government, the French government, the German government have all facilitated international response to this war by providing humanitarian assistance in terms of food and in terms of huge investment in terms of reconstruction. The reconstruction have failed, and our people have discarded some of those humanitarians' need.
So we don't decide say me la Republic the stop for the deceive was civilians. Thank you now. Wow, so now that mattress than this. I dey believe say everybody could learn. Me this mattress they not stay for person in the house today.
We are calling on the international community that the international response to this humanitarian crisis that has been brought to our people by Paul BIYA cannot be met by reconstruction efforts. It cannot be met by the provision of rice, the provision of mattresses to our people. Our people want their human dignity. We are resilient people that are known for their self-determination to survive. We work for ourselves. We have been working for ourselves. And what we are demanding for is our restoration of our independence, our dignity, where our women, our children will be able to go freely to their own school of their choice, educate themselves, and empower themselves with the resources that God has given us. We ask for nothing but the dignity, the same which the people in Ukraine they are asking for, the dignity to protect their sovereignty, the dignity to live in the land of their own, freedom and democracy, where we can freely exercise our God-given right to democratic values. Paul BIYA have chosen to abandon, to ignore and camouflage international effort where he has directly engaged himself in. Paul BIYA is hiding behind his frailness, pretending because of his age that he is unable to face reality. Every effort by the international community to meet this old man to have meaningful conversation about the crimes his troops are being committing in Ambazonia, he has used his frailness, himself as a con man, a man of no dignity at all, to hide behind his illness and his age, not to resolve the problem. Even when he delegates his prime minister, even when he delegates members of his own cabinet to engage in international diplomacy and accept to have a framework for negotiation, Paul BIYA himself still disguise and camouflage this effort, afraid to pacify the environment and create an environment where our people can live their livelihood while we carry this war to the negotiation table. Paul BIYA have in every turn have shown that the war cannot partner with him. He is a con man. He is a person with no dignity, a person that cannot be respected or expected to be respected. We know that he needs time. We know that the syndicates of drugs that his governors and generals have set up in Ambazonia to intoxicate our youth, frustrate them and promote chaos and kidnapping for ransom as a means to fight against our aspiration, he needs time for them to sanitize that environment to prepare for the eventuality of their departure. We know that his generals and governors who have created syndicates to bring in fuel from Nigeria, undermining even Cameroon businesses in Ambazonia by facilitating syndicates that transact fuel and stolen and pirated fuel from Nigeria to Ambazonia for their own personal benefit. We know that all these criminal syndicates that have been set up by Paul BIYA's administrators in Ambazonia, they need time to sanitize the environment and prepare for the eventuality of the coming of daylight and negotiation where everything will be brought to this. We do not expect a miracle, but we expect at least Paul BIYA to own up and man up to this reality that he cannot win Ambazonia. What we have seen the Cameroon government and Paul BIYA doing in the international community, his speech is a charade, it's a disgrace. He seeks to project himself as a strong man, but internationally, Paul BIYA is a weak and frail person whose military have had stalemate and are unable to defeat our forces on the ground. They are unable to dissociate our people using corruption to corrupt the soul of our people. Our people are resilient to demand for separation and independence as the only way to preserve their own dignity. President Paul BIYA also make mention about the fight against corruption within his administration. We want to remind the Ambazonian people and the international community, in particularly our international partners, that money being invested in Paul BIYA to sustain his economy as they crumble in the face of this war, spending billions to buy military equipment. The international community, the directors of the World Bank, have recently approved $100 million to sustain the economy of Cameroon. How can you be sponsoring the corruption and greed of individuals who are like vampires over their people? The Cameroon ministers have embezzled over 75% of funds provided to sustain that economy by the World Bank. It is time for the international community to stop feeding the monster of Africa, the oldest president of Africa, who is committing genocide, who seeks for a way out to sustain and prolong the war that his own vampires are benefiting from. It's time for the international community to rein in the World Bank and stop sponsoring this regime. It's time for the international community to bring the sticks to rein in this regime. It has been close to 4 years since Ambassador Peter of the United States of America called out Paul BIYA for killing and carrying out targeted assassination and war crimes in Ambazonia.
Qui est l'ambassadeur américain? C'est qui ce voyou? C'est qui? C'est qui? Le Cameroun a été arrêté parce qu'un président comme ça a parlé. Un idiot qui ne connaît même pas la différence entre la diplomatie et les règles élémentaires de la diplomatie. C'est qui l'ambassadeur américain? C'est qui? Et vous voulez nous obliger à les considérer comme des Camerounais et les traiter comme tels.
Are the people of the Bulu Beti clique that have taken hold of this poor African country, a country that publicly demonizes and dehumanizes Ambazonia. And they claim they cannot treat us as Cameroonians because we claim we are Ambazonians. For a political claim, Paul BIYA choose to annihilate our population. For America to call for the respect of the right of life for our people, the Ambassador Peter, is labeled a criminal, and the political parties in La République du Cameroon are dismissed by Paul BIYA as reflected by henchmen and his dogs such as this. A country that rejects opposition party, a country that rejects expression of rights. Paul BIYA have made a deliberate decision to annihilate us and carry out genocide. His aggression against the Americans should be seen for who he is. All the lip service he plays to the international communities is only to buy time to kill Ambazonians and to get loans to sustain his economy. That must come to an end. The United States, the United Nations must come to the realization that Paul BIYA cannot change, is not capable of changing on his own, and they must rein in where it hurts the most, which is the bank account of Paul BIYA. The United States of America, Canada, France, Germany must stop the flow of money into Cameroon. Money that goes into private pockets and the people have nothing to show for. The United Nations and the international panel must stop the idea of reconciliation, of reconstruction as a means of resolving our problem. It has all failed. For the past 2 years, the activity of the UNDP have not shown any progress in bringing justice or peace to our people. Our people still continue to fight this regime and demand for nothing but the outright independence of our territory.